What episode?
All right, guys. Welcome to episode 18? 18 of the podcast?
17?
Yeah, 18.
Is it 18?
17? 18? 18.
18. Holy shit.
16 we had Jasmine on. Last week was 17. This week's 18.
Damn. Well,
I mean,
crazy.
And then soon it's going to be soon it's going to be episode 20. Is it 20 that we're going to be somewhat live from Zoo Tampa?
Yeah,
live-ish.
Yeah, so I don't think we've mentioned that at all before this episode starts. For October 1st, like we mentioned last episode, Chad and I and a bunch of our friends, we're going to be at Zoo Tampa. So meet us there if you want. But we're going to be filming, we're going to be live on our Instagram account for pretty much the whole day. So go on the Instagram, follow our Instagram if you want to chit-chat with us, hop in the live, bullshit, see a bunch of cool stuff about the zoo. So we're going to take a lot of clips from that Instagram live, as well as we're going to be recording. And the episode for the podcast is going to be a whole highlight, basically like a highlight reel of our zoo trip. So it'll be like an hour and a half, 2 hours of us messing around at Tampa Zoo, seeing all kinds of cool stuff, interacting with you guys in the Instagram lives. I might even go live on TikTok. I think that would be fun, bringing a bunch of cool new viewers. Yeah, that should be episode 20, I think.
We're live on. Yeah.
It'll be early.
It should be fun.
20. It'll be episode 22, theoretically.
20. Well. Is it 22, really?
Yeah, it's 3 weeks away. Or 2 weeks away. We have next week would be 19.
2 weeks.
The week after would be 21, and then the week after is the Tampa trip.
One of the things I've been thinking about, and I mean, granted, we're kind of on it, but we're not, is social media. Is social media really helping the hobby or hurting the hobby? You know,
hurting it more than helping.
Yeah, helping it. It's helping it 110%.
I think it's helping it, but there's a lot of hurt.
Okay,
no, I fully agree.
Social media.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a difference. I would say the internet's hurting it. Social media helps it.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Social media hurts it. The internet helps.
You think so? I feel like there's a lot of misinformation on the internet, and social media has the breeders and everyone trying to correct that misconception.
Yeah,
give me a hot second. My dog starts scratching the back. So my thoughts are, I mean, TikTok's the newest, biggest thing. Gavin, you got a pretty good following on TikTok. I kind of fell off the planet with TikTok. But, like, you see some of these people that have thousands of people in their lives, and it's like, you're not even doing anything. I mean, and then some people are talking about stuff and have no idea what they're talking about, and they just look like, there's this one lady that free roams her bearded dragons on TikTok, and it's like, that's so bad for the bearded dragon.
Yeah, I think it goes to a deeper level, and it depends on what social media platform we're talking about. I think Instagram is very, very helpful to our community. All the big breeders and everyone I know on Instagram seems to be doing it right and always being good. Whereas TikTok, there's very, very little good keeping going on TikTok. People are just buying animals just to get the quick following and make the money. And Facebook's like an in-between. The Facebook itself, I would say, helps. I think the breeder pages and everyone's pages are good. But then when you go to some of these groups, not all of them, but like I'd say 80% of these groups are just a fucking garbage shit show. That does not help at all.
So that's where I think social media in general is a positive for the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Things helping out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely getting the younger generation.
Groups are a positive and a negative. You have to take it's just the way the world works when we have free speech. You know, like you just can't. You're never gonna stop dummies from saying dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to, every person has to be able to filter it at a realistic level, or like at a mature adult level. You have to be able to filter the dumbness out, and you got to be smart about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where Gavin and I Chad, did you grow up with like the internet like in your hand pretty much, like from
Yep.
guy?
When I graduated high school, like, the iPhone wasn't even out yet.
So, Gavin and I don't know when Gavin got his first phone.
13.
I got my first iPod in like 6th grade when I was like 12 or 11. I don't know how old you are there. Chad probably knows. He's got a kid. How old are you when you're in 6th grade? Don't know. Don't care. I got my first phone in like I was 8th grade. But like, so I could talk to people on the internet when I was that young. And I got, I started learning about, you learn how to filter at a young age. The dumbness, but, my grandparents don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I think for younger generations, it's phenomenal. Maybe for the other generations that aren't as internet savvy, and believe everything they see out there is, it's a net it might be a net negative,
Yeah.
I mean, because
there's
also
definitely
a
people that are just...
You keep on, Chad. You good.
No, I think there's, on social media, too, is... we touched on it a little bit last week. There's people in, like, all these groups that are mods in all these different groups. And I'm sorry, you can't tell me that you're an expert on every single reptile that's out there. Every different reptile, every exotic animal, every animal has its own different care requirements, with the exception of, like, dogs and cats. But even dogs and cats, different breeds of dogs need more exercise than others. You were just talking about my blue heeler. That thing is on a schedule. Like, if I'm 2 minutes late feeding him, he's sitting there whining. He's sitting down. He's just like waiting. Hey, where's my food? Once he's done with his food, he's like, okay, it's time to go outside. Like,
it's a very different level of dog,
Yeah. So to say that you're an expert in all this stuff and you're trying to give information, it's like, look, Gavin knows more about exotic or aquatic turtles than I do. I know a little bit about a lot of different things. My forte has always been fish tanks, and that's just what I grew up doing. Do I love reptiles more than fish tanks? Yes, because I don't have a fish tank and don't want to dedicate my time to it. But I like the reptiles because I just think they're more enjoyable than watching fish swim around a tank all the time. So I just think that social media really puts out a lot of information, a lot of incorrect information, and people go to these Facebook groups instead of trying to do their research online, or even, or just going directly to your breeder and talking to the breeder of the animal you want to get, or one of the long-term keepers of it.
I definitely think you're kind of right there, but I think getting information from groups is a lot better than going online, because when you go online, Reptile magazine is what pops up. Nothing's wrong with Reptile magazine, but if you read any of those articles, I think the most up-to-date one was like 2010. So it's a lot of outdated information, whereas you can get a lot more updated information from groups. But it is very hard to distinguish, especially if you're someone new. If you're someone new in the industry, it is very, very hard to distinguish who is actually an expert at what they say they are. Because a lot of people will claim they are and act like they are in Facebook groups, but yet have never dealt with, like, I know people in crocodilian groups that will fucking tear your ear, like, will just fucking yap about all this shit crocodilians, yet they have never even seen one in person. Like, they just get their information off online, and so it's definitely a matter of finding who is actually the expert, who's bullshitting, and that, I think, just takes time and research, and I think that's the thing. Even without social media, you can go to reptile shows in person, and there's the same shit. There's people vending that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but then there's people that truly do. It's just a matter of trying to find who to trust and who not to trust.
Yeah, it's like you go to a show, and then you go to the wholesaler tables. Mm-hmm. Then the wholesaler tables have all these different animals. Well, they're not breeding them all. When you have 50 different species on a table, they're not breeding all those. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You can be the best breeder there is, but you're not breeding 50 different species successfully and selling them for as cheap as you're selling them for. But you go to the guy that he's selling 6 crested geckos, and the rest of his table is all like knick-knack things, because that's how he makes his money to pay for his table, because every kid that walks in there, they might not be able to get an animal, but they can get a little knick-knack. You know? So, I mean, you definitely get that same thing at shows, but I just think it's like, when I went to buy my Ackies, I went to the Ackie monitor group and was like, who are the best breeders for Ackie monitors?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and everybody, or the majority of people, said X, Y, and Z. And there were some people that, oh, just PM me, I breed Ackies, and it's like, okay, I don't trust you, I don't trust anybody that said PM me because I have them. You know, I kind of went with the common, or the general consensus of, these are the best breeders, these are the people you want to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Yeah, that's, I mean, it really comes down to what you always have to do in this hobby. Like, even before I was on social media, just was, you know, I remember, like, literally young Gavin and I, like, sneaking out of his room into his dad's office, sitting at that corner desk and putting up sheets on reptiles that we found on, what was that website? Blackwater Reptiles?
Yeah, we did use the go. Oh my god, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, looking up characters, you always have to, like, filter, like, even from that age when we're just looking up character sheets online, you always have to filter information, and what everyone's telling you is probably not true. It's probably, like, everyone's got differing opinions, and this and this and this and this are, you know, all to do one way. There's 4 ways of, you know, accomplishing one goal. It's probably best that there's a combination of all those.
Yeah,
I would not. I think it's you know, it's one of those things we just have to filter our own information, and it just requires reptile hobbyists to be smart with how they look up hair.
Yeah, and
there's never going to be one and get perfect information.
That's 100% true. You definitely want to take bits and pieces from a bunch of different people, but at the same time, I always think it's best to follow, like, per se, like we all have someone that has helped us in this community, like a mentor type shit. I always think it's best to only have, like, maybe 3 quote-unquote mentors that are helping you in this community. Even if they do it all differently, you don't want to have, like, you don't want to be going to, like, 10 different people trying to get information, because all 10 people are going to tell you 10 different things. Whereas if you're going to 3 people who you trust, like, you know that they're good with reptiles, you can go to those 3 people about your question. They might give you 3 different answers, but it's a lot easier to combine 3 different ideas from 3 people who you truly trust in this community than to just take, like, 10, 20 different answers from just random people in this community. I think it's best to, like, narrow down who you look up to and follow, rather than just going out and listening to every single person that you ask this question to, if that makes sense at all.
I mean, the worst part about social media is, I mean, everyone's got a voice on it, but that's the best part of social media. Everyone gets a voice, right? And everyone, you know, deserves to have their opinion heard about something.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone heard about every topic, and reptiles is one of them. You know?
Yeah.
So that's what I always, like, equated to. Like, you're gonna get everybody's opinion, and you just have to find the ones that are actually worth listening to on there. Because, you know, go into a group full of dummies, and, you know, I think it's a Joe Rogan bit about it. Hey, you put 100 groups of dummies in there, and the most confident one is going to be the leader. Yeah. They're all going to be like, what's going on? Hold on. I know what's going on. One of them is going to be, I know what's going on. You know?
Yeah.
It's fun. So you always have to information. I think social media has been a net positive for the hobby, because it's probably brought in more people.
I agree. It's definitely the hobby has grown significantly ever since social media, and the hobby would not be where it is today without social media, and you can't deny that. That's just facts.
I guess, and this is coming from, I get two different generations. I mean, because I remember going to reptile shows back in the day,
and they were all, I mean, granted, different areas, bigger cities, all that stuff. But the reptile shows were huge back in Tampa, Orlando. Daytona was huge, and now Daytona's half the size as it used to be.
That's because of Florida.
And,
that's because of laws and regulations, though. That's not because of.
Yeah, but I mean, even at the Breeders' Expo, they had stuff that was illegal in Florida. But as long as you were out of state, I mean, they had stuff that you could buy as long as you weren't a Florida resident.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, and I haven't been in a long time, but everybody talk to a few people that went this year, and they're like, it was so small. The only thing that was there was, I mean, it was pretty much a bunch of turtles, because the guy who runs Breeders' Expo is a turtle guy.
Yeah,
and
I see your point there, but you can, I have heard from multiple people that have been going to Daytona since when it was in Orlando originally. And Daytona particularly has always been turtles. It's always been turtles. Tinley has always been ball pythons, and Anaheim and Arlington have always been like a decent mix of everything. I get your point. I definitely do, but I think that's more so being affected by laws and regulations, and I don't think social media plays an aspect in that at all. Because if you look,
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying the difference between being a pre-social media and going to shows.
Mm-hmm.
The shows seemed bigger. They seemed like they had a more wide variety of animals.
Yeah.
And then now, since social media has become this big thing, it's what's popular, what's everybody looking at social media wise. That's why you see, like, you go out to like last week. There was some different stuff that I wouldn't have expected to see at Alabama show. Like, we had blue tree monitors, we had Dorianus, we had a lot of various different monitors that I would have never expected to see here. But we also had a surplus of gargoyle geckos, crested geckos, a surplus of ball pythons, and just a surplus of those very niche, like, not niche, but very popular,
beginner,
everybody wants to do it kind of things. No, I wouldn't even say beginner. I mean, like we've talked about, ball pythons really aren't the best beginner snakes.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody looks at them as beginners because you can get one for cheap. But at the same time, how many people freak out when my ball python hasn't eaten for 2 months? Is it going to die? No, it's not going to die. It's just a ball python.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But, like, you can ask I bet you right now, you go up to any single person that any of us know, ask them, what's a good beginner snake? Their top 3 answer is going to be either ball python, corn snake, or king snake / milk snake. Like, it'll always be those 3, because not even, like, yeah, the ball pythons can go off food, but they're hardy as fuck. You don't have to take care of a ball python like you have to take care of a green tree python. So you can easily get away with keeping it in quote-unquote, not quote-unquote, you can get away with keeping it in shitty conditions, and that makes it, people like to assume that to be beginner-friendly, because you can't really kill a ball python. It takes a lot to kill a ball python. I think, I do agree that the ball python market and all that is oversaturated, but, like, your show, you would, I bet you 1,000% you would not have seen blue tree monitors and blue tail monitors at that Repticon if it wasn't for social media. Because as of this last year, tree monitors have fucking skyrocketed in popularity. Like, the past 2 years, and it's because of social media. People have started posting these green tree monitors, these blue tree monitors, and they have skyrocketed. You can ask any tree monitor breeder, and they will say ever since, like, let's say 3 years ago, because of social media, they have gained huge popularity. And, like, I think that's a great thing.
I think it's really been since COVID that we've seen, and everyone had that influx of cash. They thought, everything was going great. As far as, if you were in any hobby, like, I work in the paddle sports world, so many people were getting into the paddle sports world, which can, and usually does cost them significantly more than what I paid to get into my reptiles. And, I got pretty expensive lizard for my first reptile. But yeah, I think we saw an explosion of everything.
Yeah, COVID
Literally
definitely helped.
Yeah.
Very good. And the year following. I don't think social media is a net negative, but I do think it's definitely changed the in-person interactions between reptile people.
Yeah.
I think the reptile shops are way less of a hangout, and which is probably a good thing for those reptile shops, because they don't want people just going up there and not spending any money with them. But it's way less of a to go meet other people, or way less clubs around. I don't know if reptile clubs have ever been a thing, but fish clubs.
Yeah.
Fish clubs are way down. Like, the one in my area ended when I was in high school. And it's just harder to get people to commit their time to a in-person interaction for their hobby when their hobby doesn't require interacting with people, if that makes sense.
I agree. I think a perfect example of that is in the green tree community. And the reason why I say that is because if you went to Daytona or any big expo in the early 2000s, you would have seen the Chondro Coalition, which was Rico Walder, Trooper Walsh, Marshall Mendez, big breeders. And they had on display, they was like 4 or 5 tables all joined together, and the only thing they displayed was their captive born and bred green tree pythons. They brought in an adult albino green tree python for display, and like that.
Oh yeah.
And the green tree community has definitely started rising again in popularity, but nobody brings captive born green tree pythons to shows. And I was listening to a podcast with Bill Stiegel, he's basically the GOAT of our generation when it comes to green trees. And he's like, it's not even worth it. He's like, it's just, there's too much. What?
Like our generation or like our time right now?
I would say our time right now.
24, already time like, okay.
Our time, like right now in the community, right? I would say Bill is like the GOAT. There's definitely people that have been, the other people that I like more than Bill. Not that I don't love Bill. Bill's the GOAT, but he said it perfectly and was like, he's like, I don't want to. He's like, I can sell these green tree pythons. He's like, I sell them pretty much as they get bred. Like they pop out of the egg as soon as they're ready to sell, they're sold. He's like, I don't want to risk taking a super sensitive green tree python that's worth $5,000 to $10,000 to an expo just for it to like probably die either in transit or at the expo, especially when all of his sales are through social media. What's the point of vending a show? Like, what's the point of vending a show? Risk all that stress when you can make the same amount of money, if not more, because you're not losing money on a table.
Yeah. Well,
to sell it online.
And there's a lot of people.
There's definitely. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's definitely like an aspect like, yeah, you can go to the expo and like, meet people and like market yourself, but they still do that. Like Bill and like these guys, they still go to like expos and like they go and see people. Like all these big breeders that don't vend normal expos will still go to most of these big shows and at least get their name, like, meet people, interact, market. It's just hard to justify putting a lot of stress on animals that you have put years into breeding and like trying to get just to bring it to an expo for it to get stressed out and possibly die. Because I know for a fact, let's say I start producing monkey tail skinks, you'll never fucking see me bring one to an expo. I would never bring one to an expo just because of the stress. There's just way too much stress, let alone diseases. Mites roam free at fucking expos. I don't care what kind of rules these people say that like, yeah, we don't allow mites and all that. You can go to an expo and you'll see mites. And a lot of animals at expos have mites. So it's like, is it really worth the risk of death / getting a bad like mite outbreak or infection to your animals when you can sell them just as good online?
Yeah. I mean, like, because I know I know people that do kind of both. I know people that do the show circuit, and they're at Reptile Expo every weekend. And they make a little bit, but most of them are like, the show was terrible. And then I know people that go to Tinley, they go to Anaheim, they go to the Breeders' Expo, and those are the only shows they go to.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where people go to spend money.
Yeah.
Or they go for the auction aspect of it.
Yeah,
like, they might vend there and spend all the money they make at vending at the auction so that they can expand their collection a little bit.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand I mean, don't get me wrong. Social media was one of those things where you're scrolling through things and you see somebody with a new morph or a new this or a new that, and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. And then you're like, hey, how much is this? Thinking, because when I got out of it, everything was still pretty inexpensive. And then you go and say, hey, how much is this? And they're like, oh, it's like $2,500. And I'm like, I don't see how that's worth $2,500. I appreciate your honesty about things, or I even had a buddy of mine that hatched out some monitors here recently. And I was like, hey, how much is it? And he goes, oh, $1,000. And I'm like, that monitor's not even worth it. Like, it's not worth $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I hope you don't sit on them too long. I hope you sell them, but that species of monitor doesn't sell for $1,000 anymore. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I definitely think.
Was it an accident?
Yeah. But they did, at the Reptile Expo this past week, they did have adult male ugly yellow Ackies for like $1,200.
Yeah, adult.
Are you not a
What was that?
Are you not a yellow Ackie fan?
No, I love yellow Ackies. I think yellow Ackies are, I mean, if you get the right breeder or the right breeders with yellow Ackies, I think they look far better than reds. But that's just my personal opinion on things, and people are going to crucify me for that.
I'm not going to crucify you for it, because everyone has their own taste, you know. But yeah. I love a good red Ackie. I think red's one of my favorite colors. You know? Every red, you know.
Yeah. I'm the outlier in the group. I like the fucking top enders. We each like a different kind of Ackie.
What?
Well, so and then you can talk to people, and like you talk to one person that's a really high end breeder of Ackies and breeds all dwarf monitors, and he says top enders really aren't a thing. You talk to another one, like totally offended John one time because I was like, I mean, aren't they just yellow Ackies? No, top ender's not a yellow Ackie. To me, a top ender is a yellow Ackie that's got a different set of patterns to it, and it comes from a certain location, but it's a yellow Ackie it's a low-cowed yellow Ackie. Yeah. That's the only thing, because the top end it's from the top end of their region, right? That's why it's called a top ender. Like, plain and simple. That's all it is. And it has a little bit longer line on it, and realistically, you can have a top ender Ackie that has bland colors, just like you can have some really bland colors in a yellow Ackie. But if you get a good yellow Ackie, you have a really nice looking animal to the point where you can have a yellow Ackie that looks brighter and better than a red Ackie. And again, it's all about who bred what and where you get it from. And I mean, it's just quality of stock. Because there are people that go and breed Ackies and they're like, oh, it's a yellow Ackie. Damn, Ackie monitor's brown as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just ugly.
I'm a huge fan of Ackies, and I think they're great. I definitely want one at one point. But the monitors that are not in the hobby right now, the two monitors I really want to work with and like breed to, make sure more people get. I'm so shocked that King Orem is not a thing in the hobby.
That is. King Orms
What?
are really popular
No.
right now.
As
Well, so the problem with King Gorams is King Gorams, the leucistic King Gorams, got super popular. So everybody was selling those and like, I don't want normals. I don't want normals. And now it's to the point where everybody wants a normal and nobody wants a leucistic.
Yeah.
But
and all of them are het leucistic or leucistic because you can't bring them in anymore. So the founding stock had het leucistics in there, so they're just all.
yeah. I mean, Mike Stefani still produces them. I'm pretty sure. The King Gorams.
It's one of those things that like it's not super regularly available, and like you have to find them super seasonally.
Yeah.
And at an attainable price point for most people's first monitor. That's what I want. You know, that would be my vision for working. Like my reason for working with them would be, I want these to get to a price where they're attainable for a normal. You know, to be someone's first monitor. So they're not buying a Savannah monitor as their first monitor. They're buying,
Yeah, so, hey, that's your whole mindset behind the electric blues as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I try to breed an animal, I don't try to that's not my job. This isn't how I make money. Like, it's nice to make pack off them. And right now, I just pour all of them to UVB bulbs for them, and freaking heat panels for the incubator that I had to rebuild. That was my fault. I wired it wrong, but that was annoying. That I had to deal with.
I mean,
first time soldering something, so like.
And you're seeing a lot more of the drops in, and this is all due to social media because people see AccuMonitor, and I think a lot of it's, and I don't know if we consider YouTube part of social media or not, but everybody talks about like the best monitors you can have, and people labeled out AccuMonitors. So AccuMonitors went from being $500 to $700, or $500 to $900, and now you can get a red Accu for $300.
Yeah.
So they're like, I say they're dirt cheap because
I think that's a great thing.
Dirt cheap for one.
I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't like
mean,
a lot of breeders.
It is and it
get,
isn't.
Oh, sorry. I think a lot of breeders will definitely get upset hearing that. Like, I know there's people that like they get into this for the money. They buy a species because they want to make money off that species, and then once they see that price dropping in species, they immediately sell their pairs. Like, I don't understand how that matters. Like, let's say Ackies for a perfect example. We'll say they were $700 and now they're $200, hypothetically. That's really like when you're producing like, I don't know, what is it, 10 to 15 eggs a clutch of Ackie monitors? $200 is still good fucking money for each one. Like, you don't got to be greedy about this shit just because it's not $500 more. You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
I'm breaking up?
Yeah.
So,
but I know that I get what you're saying, but it does. I mean, feeding bills have gone up through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Ackies do require a good amount of space. They do require a lot of semi-special care. I mean, everybody talks heat them and feed them and they'll be fine. Well, no, because they still need a lot of UV. They still need a lot of heat. They need a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So to drop the price of them, and I guess the one thing that I hate about the whole thing is you have these people that say they're making money and say they're making a lot of money. So people buy these animals thinking, oh, these are easy to breed, so I'm going to make a lot of money off of it. And I don't think that's one of those things that we should focus on. We should focus on, first off, you want to enjoy the animal you have because you're going to be taking care of them. If you don't enjoy the animal you have, then you're not going to take as good care of them. And, like, honestly, if I were to go, there's only 2 dwarf monitors that if I went to go buy dwarf monitors today, there's two dwarf monitor species that I would spend my money on, and that's Kimberly rock monitors and the Tristis monitors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Both cool monitors.
And I haven't decided if I want to do Tristis or Tristis ordatus. Because
I love Tristis.
What was that?
I think Tristis are the coolest.
But I also think that the Tristis ordatus are less prevalent, and not a lot of people are working with them, and they're just as cool. They just don't have the same, like, I don't know. They don't have that deep black Tristis look to them.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something before.
But yeah, I think
they all have the same
approach thing, right?
What
was that?
Just an approach thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we, as a hobbyist, we are approaching this like hobbyists and like people who are 110% always animal first and animal lovers. Where a lot of people, they get in this hobby, they get into it, and then they see an opportunity to make money, and then they're approaching it like a businessman.
Yeah,
I don't think you should approach it as a hobbyist, and that's what I don't. When I say I'm a hobbyist, yes, this is my hobby. But if I'm breeding anything, it's not for the hobby aspect of it. It's more for the conservation aspect of it. Because there is going to be a time where, just because of how people do things, there's going to be a point in time where there's more of these animals, of a lot of these animals, not just a few, where there's more in captivity than there are in the wild. And that's, again, why I'm not really a huge morph person, because if it ever came to the point where I have an extremely large collection of, say, Nile monitors, right? Not that Nile monitors are going anywhere, but it could come to that at some point in time. But if you just breed Nile monitors or a natural phase, if it ever came to the point where you had to re-release these animals to the wild, it would be more effective to re-release a naturally occurring animal than would be one of these morphs.
I agree. I get where you're coming from, but you're very, very, very wrong. Just because you're breeding them in captivity in their normal phases does not mean you can release them. Only say that because
I understand that. I'm saying the probability of survival of a natural a normal animal is higher because they don't have the heightened colors. They don't have the various different changes to them to make them so they can't camouflage appropriately. They can't thermoregulate properly if they're an albino, or they can't deal with the UV or anything like that.
But all those things you mentioned, even if they're normal, they still can't do properly because they're fucking captive bred. A lot of them are inbred, and they've never been in the wild before. It's like when you it's like a I don't know how to, not in reptile term, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, but you can rewild things, Gavin. Like it's
yes,
been done.
You can, but when you're trying to re-establish a population, you cannot use a lot of these because they're so inbred. No one here, not many people I think are, like a lot of people will claim, oh, I'm breeding, let's say Borneo earless monitors. Oh, we're breeding Borneo earless monitors because we want to be able to, if they ever go extinct, we can re-release them. When that's not going to happen because no one is really working with different bloodlines, and two, no one, like, the amount of effort it takes to actually re-release something, like, is a lot harder than I think people say. I definitely agree.
Yeah, but Gavin, it's not the practical application of it. Like you're talking, you're saying that we absolutely will. That's why I'm breeding the electric blues, is that one day if we have to, we can re-release them back into that very small natural range that they have. That's probably going to get wiped out.
But are they?
But Gavin, Chad's speaking to not breeding morphs, and that if we ever had to start a project where we can rewild the animals,
they're going to zoos.
have the natural form of them.
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah, I see what you're
I
saying,
mean-
but they're not going to take.
At the very
They
least,
don't.
we
They
have
don't.
that
No
natural
one.
ability.
It'll never come from a private hobby. I'm sorry, but there's not going to be a private hobbyist if it does get to that point, they're going to the zoos.
But we're saying
breeding
worst
these.
case scenario, Gavin. We're saying very worst
Right.
case.
And you can't say it's not going to come from a private collection, because there are private collections of. I mean, that's why the control of radiated tortoises is what it is, because the private hobbyists are going to eventually be able to re-release those radiated tortoises in the wild.
No, dude. All the rate. I get what you're saying, but like from a practical standpoint, like it just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
Like a lot
No,
of like you say that, but like
it's
they're
not a
all
practical
ESA
thing.
animals.
Gavin.
Like all, I know.
The animal goes completely.
The
The animal goes completely. Right?
Yes. They're going to the zoo.
Would you rather have 150 of them in their natural form, the way they were, or would you rather have 100 of them in their natural form and 50 of them in morphs because someone bred those morphs?
Yeah, I get that point. Like I agree.
You'd rather have the 150 natural.
Yeah,
that was Chad's point.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm saying just from like a practical standpoint, they're not gonna go to a private industry, especially radiated. It's like radiated for any ESA animal. None of them can cross state lines. They're all inbred within the same state. And there's zoos that have like wild stock that have like a bunch of different wild stock that do breed different bloodlines, and they keep track of bloodlines, whereas no one privately is actually keeping track of bloodlines. So all these people that say they're breeding said species to eventually reintroduce to the wild they're just smoking shit, because they're not doing it. They're not going about the proper procedures. No one's actually tracking bloodlines and all that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Couldn't that population supply the zoos now? And now only breeding facilities are focused on rebreeding the tracked bloodlined animals?
Repeat that?
Yeah, so you're saying that, it would only come from, only rewilded animals would come from a zoo.
90%
okay,
of them, yes.
Because they track bloodlines. So why don't we just use those tracked bloodline animals only for breeding and not for display at all? And the hobby sell the zoos their turtles? There's a good valid reason for breeding for conservation.
I agree. I'm not saying that there's not a good reason.
It's a very noble to do.
No, and like I said, I agree. I don't think that you should know this. I want to breed crocodilians for conservation, but just because I don't know where I'm going with this, man. It's hard to explain. I understand completely what you're saying.
Have this one spicy, so like Chad and I are being spicy in our
No, and I completely understand that. Like I completely understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying it doesn't. Just practically, it doesn't work like that. There are some breeders that can, private breeders, yes, that can and will introduce species because they are tracking bloodlines and all this. But for the most part, zoos are way more successful at breeding these, so it would make zero sense to give those bloodlines to breeders.
But you know what's actually funny though, Gavin, about what you're saying is, did you know that a lot of these AZA facilities will contact the private breeder because they've had more success with some of these animals than they do?
Not a lot. Some of them do, yes. But I've been in the AZA side of things, my guy. I grew up in this industry on the AZA side. So I understand that they go to private
I get
people,
that,
but
yeah, they go to private individuals. Hell, some zoos buy private or buy from exporters because they did animals, so they buy one from an exporter.
Yeah, but zoos, they can go to the private.
You're not doing conservation by breeding natural forms of an animal in captivity. Even if you're not a zoo, you're not doing conservation. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, because if it comes down to it, right, and we completely rape and pillage all the Uromastics Egyptian euros out of Egypt, right? We'll get rid of all of them. And then there's people that are in the hobby that have these. Somebody's going to go and say, hey, we want these animals back in the wild. Who's got them? Who's willing to sell them to us? Because inbreeding happens in the wild too. An animal's not going to say, hey, you're of a different bloodline, so I'm going to go mate with you. I don't have to mate with my sister over here.
I think, say that does happen. I think, say that does happen.
Not proven to have an effect on reptiles, right?
To an extent, but I think if you're
like all the Galapagos tortoises are inbred, bro.
I think if you were to take
your
example, all your mastics go extinct, and you need to reintroduce them. They're not gonna. What's gonna happen is zoos and facilities are gonna buy these populations from private breeders and then produce them themselves, and then start sending them off. They're not just gonna send them off because there are so many reptile species that are extinct.
To breed, to buy.
But why would they do that? So if I have 1,000 Egyptian mastics, but seriously, logically thinking, right? Just let's think logically. If I have 1,000 Egyptian euros, right? I have 10 different breeding pairs of different pairs of Egyptian euros, right? So I have all these different bloodlines of Egyptian euros that I think, because they're wild caught, I got them from different places. Chances are there's going to be some of the same bloodlines in there. But if I have 1,000 Egyptian euros, right, and there's no zoos around that have these things, is the government going to go to the zoo that doesn't have them, or are they going to come to me and say, "Hey, you have 1,000 of these animals. We'd like to take them and re-release them into the wild"?
If that's the case, then why are there endangered species that are in private collections that aren't being reintroduced?
Well, that's a great question.
Like, there's extinct
first off, do people know that they have these endangered species?
Yes, there's some species that are like Indian spotted turtles. Great example. There are 6,000 plus being produced a year. Not a lot in just Florida alone, and there is less than 500 individuals left in the wild. Why aren't they taken from private?
Is there a legitimate rewilding program for them at all, Gavin?
Huh?
Is there a legitimate rewilding program at all for them, Gavin?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, well,
that's
like
people running that are not well enough or not efficient.
Like, no, it's because
it's not.
It's because it's in private hands.
The
governments aren't going to trust.
What you're tackling, Gavin, is a different problem than what we're trying to tackle. You're trying to tackle why are these programs as successful as they are, or not as successful as they are.
I'm tackling
and procuring the animals, and we're just saying it's not a bad idea to breed an animal in its natural state. And that's all we're saying, right, Chad? That's all we got.
I mean, basically,
I'm just trying to say that these governments trust zoos more than they don't trust the private hands. They're not going to take from private hands.
Gavin, are you saying it's that we should only breed for morphs then?
No, that's not. I said that's not what I'm saying. I've moved on from that. I've moved on from that. Y'all, I've moved on from that. I am talking about specifically.
We're not smart enough to talk about this, Gavin.
No, I am talking about specifically is that you. All I'm trying to say is that you, as a person, whether or not you're breeding for morphs or not, like as much as you want to think you are, 99.9% of the chances you're not going to ever get a chance to reintroduce those animals. So just at that point, what does it matter whether or not you're breeding for morphs or not? I agree that there should be more normals. I agree. I understand that point. But it doesn't fucking matter because we're on the private side of things. If we're AZA side or AZA affiliated, have at it. There's a reason why no AZA zoos are allowed to have morphs. I agree with you there. But I'm just saying private people are not really introducing species like y'all are trying to say.
Yeah, when you sound like the dad that's telling his kid at football practice, you're never going to make it to the NFL. Why are you even trying?
Well, it's true. Do most of those kids make it to the NFL? No, they don't.
Well, but that also raises again, going back to the social media thing, when you have these people that are on social media that have 6,000 Indian spotted turtles in the state of Florida alone, why are we not looking at those people saying, hey, you're doing something right, the zoos aren't doing what
they've tried. The person I'm talking about specifically has reached out to the government in India multiple times, and they keep getting denied for no reason, just besides the fact that they're private.
Yeah, well, that's their own fault.
That's the government of India's fault. That's not something we can change, Gavin, and that's not something. Again, you're talking.
That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
We're talking. We just like to throw the football around.
I know, I agree with you there. I am just trying to say that 99% of these private keepers are not going to be able to reintroduce into the wild like they want to do. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
That is all I'm saying.
Yeah, anyone who says they're trying to breed for conservation actually has the thought process that, hey, I'm going to go to Borneo and release these Borneo earless runners. They say, hey, I'm breeding for conservation because these things might one day be wiped out, and at least we have them to show the next generation and
what they look like. Yes, so they can display them.
And that is conservation, Gavin, and that's the point.
Yeah, I
agree. All right, this is editing Gavin here. I am popping in here just so I can make my point a little bit more clear. I am not saying that people don't breed for conservation. All my point here is trying to say is that 90% of people that claim to be breeding for conservation are not doing the proper procedures, going through the proper paperwork, and doing all the proper protocols and everything that's needed to do to actually introduce these species back into the wild for conservation purposes. That's all I'm saying is 99% of the people that are quote-unquote breeding for conservation are not doing the proper procedures to actually make it into the wild. It is very fucking difficult to introduce species into the wild. There's lots of paperwork, lots of procedures, and lots of protocols and shit that you have to go through before you can even be considered to release them into the wild. So that's all I'm trying to say is that 90% of the people in the hobby, in the U.S. hobby at least, I don't know about anywhere else in the world, are not doing that paperwork. They're just breeding animals and claiming it's for conservation and for reintroducing into the wild. That is my entire point here. That's all I'm trying to say. And if you don't agree with that or whatever, you're literally just wrong, because there's quite literally paperwork and procedures that you have to follow to do this, introducing these animals into the wild. I'm sorry, but that's just the facts. If you don't believe me, go breed some endangered animals and go try and give them off and have them released into the wild. You're not going to be able to. You're going to get denied every time unless you have this proper paperwork in place, the procedures and all that shit in place.
Back to Uromastyx and stuff. If I have all these Uromastyx and I continue to breed these Uromastyx to where I have a very large amount of Uromastyx, and the government of that country of origin doesn't want to buy from me just because I'm a Joe Schmo off the street, it's their loss for not being able to reintroduce these animals, especially if I'm reaching out to them consistently saying, hey, I have all these animals. They were probably pillaged from your... I'm not even saying pay me for them. I want them to be out in the wild. You don't have to pay me for them.
Yeah, but if that's
I love
your
these
mindset,
animals. They were probably taken out of your country to begin with.
If that's your mindset, then you should have no problem giving those animals to zoos to then introduce them in the wild. Correct?
Yeah, but
correct. Do you agree? Do you agree with me there?
Where would they come from?
No, I don't agree with you there. I'm saying that the system's broken, so that if there's no reason to.
I agree that the system's broken. So, like, if you know the system is broken, you've reached out and they have denied you. Do you not think it? Like, are you going to reach out to the zoo to have them try and reintroduce, or are you going to say fuck it and leave it there? Because if you say fuck it and leave it there, then you're
not necessarily because I think that there's. I think there's some. If I'm being as prolific with the Uromastyx, right? The AZA Zoo is not going to, or the species that I'm working with, the AZA Zoo is going to say, we know better than you do, right?
But you just said that they hit up private breeders for information all the time.
I said they've hit up exporters to get animals.
No, we can rewind.
I'll play the clip. You know what's actually funny, though, Gavin, about what you're saying? Is did you know that a lot of these AZA facilities will contact the private breeder because they've had more success with some of these animals than they do?
For no reason, I know. I don't know.
But what I'm saying is there are some people that think that just because they work in an AZA facility is they know better than other people. I'm not saying that's all AZA facilities, but there are people that are like that. And I mean, it's the government that's at fault. But yeah, I mean, if it came down to it where I had to go and give away all my animals and all that stuff because it's for the betterment of humanity to be able to see these animals in the wild, sure, whatever I need to do, that's what needs to happen. Because when it all boils down to it, it's not about how much money I'm going to make. It's a matter of these animals surviving. Am I going to give all of them? No. I'm going to restart breeding. I'm going to breed them and continue to breed them so that way there's still a future in case people start to take them again.
Yeah. And yeah, like, we're just saying that it's net positive for us to be breeding with the idea of conservation in mind.
I agree. I'm the same way.
That yes, 99% of people never will. That's okay. That's okay. Like it's not on them to actually introduce them. That should be a wildlife biologist's job. So they're just, I just think it's a net positive to have more of an animal around, especially if they're endangered.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't breed endangered and extinct species. I agree. I agree about that. I'm just all I was trying to say is the private person is more than likely not going to be able to reintroduce. That's what my whole point was.
Yeah,
that was my whole point.
And that you're just, and I think where Chad and I are like we're trying to explain is that what you're saying is a point that we all understand.
I don't think a lot of people,
right?
Y'all might understand that, but I don't think a lot of people watching understand that.
They should then. Now they do.
Now they do. But
I
understand that y'all understand this, but you have to keep in mind we're recording for a fucking podcast. Like we have people that are going to watch this.
Okay, first off, let's talk about the most underrated lizard in the hobby today.
Then I say Uromastyx.
Nah. Uromastyx are underrated as hell.
I know, but I wouldn't say. Fuck it, I'm not going to argue. I'm not.
Okay, I guess I shouldn't say underrated.
No. They're definitely underrated.
Less appreciated.
No, I agree that they're underrated.
They're cool as hell.
You
know what the first and the most excited animal I am to see at the reptile shop is the Uromastyx. Like I go into Extreme Exotics, one of the best shops in Florida. Is that not one of the best shops in Florida, Gavin?
It's up there.
They have a Congo crocodile in the shop.
Trust me, I said it's up there. The only competition in my mind is cold-blooded shark.
That's Stephen's place, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And I literally rush to the section where their Uromastyx are, if they have them, and I'm looking for a Uromastyx, and then when I see one, I'm like, nice, that's cool. Like that, I think they're so cool, and I just want to learn more about them.
So let's just say this: Uromastyx are not fun lizards to keep, because they don't do much. They hide all the time. They don't really do anything.
No,
they wedge themselves under rocks. I mean, they're cool. They're really cool lizards. Love them. I have this strange fascination with them. I almost got an Egyptian Euro this past weekend. Might still get them. One of the hard things is because they're small, or when they get underweight, it's hard to put weight back on them just because of their dietary needs. So it's just a pain in the butt to put weight back onto them. But I still might be looking at getting a couple Egyptian Euros. But I kind of want to get into I definitely want to get a few breeders of the Egyptian Euros and the Saharan yellows.
Yeah, I like the red ones. I forgot what they're called.
They're the same.
Of course, you like the red ones. I want the red ones.
They're all geared.
I like red.
I like red.
I don't like any of the species, to be honest. My favorites are the ones that are actually under the radar. I like the fucking Yemen Uromastyx.
Is that the tiny one?
No, they get pretty big and they're crazy colored. I like Yemenensis.
What's the dwarf one?
No idea.
There's a really small one.
Are you talking about the what's the one that starts with a T? Has the little weird tail?
You guys still see me right now?
Yeah.
Didn't know.
This is the Yemen. Oh, God, yeah.
God, your screen is so bright.
It's the Hardwick Eye.
Hardwick Eye?
Oh,
Yeah, Hardwick Eye.
it's a cat.
They're very tiny.
I don't know. I like Yemensis is one of the ones I like. I like Ornates are really cool. I think just the Geary
Ornates are
Eye,
super cool.
the Geary Eye, those reds and yellows are just brought in all the time, and that's all. When people think Uromastyx, it's all they think of, or they think of Egyptians. Those are like the two most popular species, and nothing's wrong with that. But I feel like there's definitely some other Uromastyx species.
Right?
What?
Are those Ornates are blue striped or Egyptians?
Ornates are blue striped,
Or green.
and then you have the Moroccans, which have the blue heads.
The Ornates are really
that's an
cool,
ornate.
and I think
Those are both Ornates.
There's a lot of people.
read a ton and get more popular in the hobby.
There are a lot of people that are captive breeding Ornates now.
Really?
I would not say
But
a lot.
nobody's.
I only know of 2 breeders that are actually breeding Ornates. All the rest are being imported.
Which 2 do you know?
I know Arids only, Philip Lietz, and then there's someone else on Facebook that I know that breeds them.
I know OBX Exotics.
Yes, that's the other
They
one.
breed them.
Yeah, that's the other one.
And they breed a lot of them.
And then the Moroccan is the other.
Do you guys know who?
Yeah.
Do you guys know who Rob Menzel is?
Yeah, he works with Ornates.
No.
Oh.
He works with Ornates.
Yeah, he works with Ornate.
But he hasn't produced them yet.
He hasn't?
No.
Do you know who he is, though, from Fish Gavin? Or do
Yeah,
you know
I
him
know.
From, did you just...
I know him because...
Did I see his page?
Yeah, years ago,
Okay.
like about
I was about to
Plecos.
say, that'd be like, you knew about him through Ornates, and I knew about him through Fish, and then we just, like...
No, I know
Like
about
small
him
world.
through Fish
Okay.
because he was doing some
These
crazy
are the ones
Plecos.
that are.
That's the Yemenensis.
Oh, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool Euro species, but that's the thing. Like a lot of people will claim they work with them, but aren't truly working with them.
That guy is pretty cool.
Is that a
I
Uromastyx?
didn't know if he worked.
Yeah, so you're a Master Thomas or the what is
Oh.
it? The Thomasai.
Yeah,
It has that little short round tail. But no. So the cool thing about Uromastyx that everybody kind of overlooks is they have a lot of awesome color that aren't morphs.
Mm-hmm.
They're just naturally occurring colors that, they're naturally occurring colors. So you have the Moroccans that have that bright blue head and the yellow body. You have the Saharans that are yellow or red. The Egyptians are kind of bland. They look a lot better as babies, but I've also never seen a captive bred Egyptian.
They're about the same.
So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know anybody was doing captive breeding of Egyptians.
Yeah, there's a few. There's more
Yes.
people doing Egyptians that I know of than Ornates.
What attracted the Uromastyx was that there were some smaller species that of a cool looking lizard. To me, they're one of the coolest looking lizards like you can get. What is that?
That's an albino. This is the only morph in Uromastyx. This is an albino.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, I just wanted to show like there is
but
at least one
really,
morph.
was that they don't eat insects, and that there are smaller versions, and they're not a bearded dragon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want a bearded dragon. If there's something smaller than a bearded dragon that, you know, could maybe fit in a 36-inch tank versus a 48-inch tank for its whole life, you know. I don't know if there is a Uromastyx species that can do that. I think Hardwick I could, possibly. But that's what attracted to me when I was looking for my first reptile. I was looking at my first lizards. I was like, I wanted a Kingorum, Varanus Kingorum, or the Electric Blues. Figured out I didn't want to feed insects every single feeding. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do the Kingor. And I was like, oh, Uromastyx are all vegetarians. There is one smaller species of them, like a couple smaller species of them. Maybe I could do that instead.
So one of the cool So the cool pros of Uromastyx is, one, they don't drop their tail.
Yeah.
Two, they're definitely cooler than a bearded dragon.
Yep.
3, you can feed them frickin' birdseed. Like, they'll eat birdseed all the time.
I've never
Why
heard
is
of that
that?
before.
Because that's... What?
I said, really? I didn't know that. I've
Yeah.
never heard of that before.
Oh,
Well, I mean, you gotta...
I never
Where
understood why.
Where do they come from?
The desert. So I guess, yeah, seeds are probably like,
Seeds are more prevalent than anything else. So you go buy a big bag of finch seed, and that's your food for the next 3 months, 4 months.
I have a question that's kind of off topic for y'all. Do you agree just because it does something in the wild that you have to do it in captivity, or do you believe that captivity, there's pros to doing stuff in captivity even though they don't do it in the wild?
Yes.
It's a weird. Yeah. Yes.
Like,
Yes, is the
yes, like
answer.
yes, you should. Like there's stuff in captivity you should do that they don't do in the wild.
And yes, there's stuff that they do in the wild that they should do in captivity.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a given. That's
exactly.
a given. But I'm talking about like bird seeds, for
Yeah.
example. Just because they're eating more bird seeds in the wild, do you think it's really better to feed bird seeds than leafy greens?
So here's the problem with Uromastyx. If Uromastyx ingests too much water, it can actually kill them.
Yeah,
So-
I know that, but I have never heard of a case of a Euro dying from too much water and greens. Personally, I mean, maybe
Yeah,
if you soak the
they're-
greens, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
know.
they can. I mean, when I had my Euros, I fed them greens every few days, but fed them the majority of. I fed them mostly. We'll go mostly because that word works. Birdseed.
I get.
But you gotta
I
make
think
sure
a
there's
better
no color-
example would be
color
like,
enhancings or anything like that. But there's people that say, "Oh, you don't offer your Uromastic water." I was like, I'll put a water dish in my Uromastic cage and just fill it up, because if they're either going to drink it or they're not going to drink it. They're not just going to soak themselves in the water and drown themselves. I mean,
mhm.
animals will go to water to seek water when they need water. They don't just overload themselves on water.
Yeah. I think like a good
Exactly.
example would be like Borneo earless monitors. They are known for burrowing. Like they burrow all the time in the wild. The few people that I know that give them deep substrate captivity, they burrow. But
Yeah.
almost every single breeder I know that's actually bred them has kept them in majority water with a little lay in. So like, do you think like that's a kind of a thing that?
Chad and I kind of agree that yes. There's things that they do in the wild that we can't replicate or isn't safe to replicate here, or maybe isn't necessary to replicate in captivity. But there are things that are absolutely required to replicate. You know.
Well, and then
That's
the same
what
thing with that
people
too is how many of us have actually been there, seen them what they do in the wild, and actually know how the proper husbandry of a Borneo earless.
Exactly. A lot of what we're doing is guessing for a lot of these reptiles. Because even the behaviors that they would naturally do can be changed by environmentals. Like
Yeah.
anyone who spends time in nature and is like, or is outdoor sportsmen, if you want to call themselves that, knows like fish don't react the same when there's tons of people around or when they're not, or when they're in this environment versus that environment within natural range. We can't
There's
really,
I agree. I
There's
agree.
a
You'll
slight
never
crab
be able
cover,
to-
so I have to use chartreuse on my lures.
and now when we're feeding them, we have to feed them chartreuse during the night.
And I agree with that. I fully agree that you cannot replicate everything that's in the wild with captivity for them. It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely no way when it comes to Uromastyx that you're going to be able to completely recreate a natural existence of the Sahara in your house. I mean, it's like
We're
the
just
great
keeping
debate
these
of
things in
sand.
boxes.
Do I use sand in my Uromastyx enclosure? Yeah, I would. I'd highly recommend using sand in your Uromastic enclosure that lives in sand all the time. I mean,
I get shit
Again.
every single
Right,
YouTube video,
and
every single
I
post.
probably said Alan.
I get shit every
What?
YouTube video and every post and anything I do about our beauties because they're on sand. It's just there's always going to be people like that for sure.
But I'm gonna accept Chad's challenge. You know the guy that has the rain house, like the bio house that's full of all the different reptiles,
Like he's got
and
a
it's
big
like a
fish tank
tropical
in it.
theme. Yeah, that guy.
oh, the ant guy?
No, it's
No. It's like a greenhouse he built into a.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna build that in a desert just because Chad said you're gonna turn your house into Sahara Desert. I'm gonna do it.
You don't have a house.
I don't have a house. That is true.
You have an apartment.
Damn.
So good
I
luck
don't
with
even have an
that.
apartment. I don't even have an apartment. I live with my parents.
You have a room in your parents' house.
Gavin, can we edit this part out? No.
You know, if you spent less money on stupid shirts, you'd have your own place.
You know what's funny is I bet your dad would be fucking laughing at that comment. That's a fucking.
How stupid do you think this shirt is, Gavin?
Oh, I thought it was umbrellas.
That's
I
awesome.
totally thought it was umbrellas.
No, it's fish flies.
I thought it was umbrellas.
You thought it was umbrellas. Oh,
Yeah,
Now
I was like, why the
stupid.
fuck does this kid have umbrellas on his shirt right now?
dude, the people on the pod are gonna think it's umbrellas. No, it's okay. People's not gonna record video anyway because every podcast I do doesn't record video.
I just had to check. I had to pull it up to make sure.
Don't touch the recording, Gavin. You're going to glitch something out.
I'm gonna be upset if this doesn't record video. If it doesn't record video, it's on you. It's something with you, dude. Because we have had no problem with any other guest.
It's 100. Has anyone else recorded on their phone though?
Yes,
Kyle did.
and Lee,
Kyle did.
and I think Jasmine.
Lee
Just
did.
that iPad. Also,
Did Jasmine?
I haven't listened to last week's pod yet, or this week's pod yet, because I have to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours tomorrow, so I figured I'd listen then.
We
got on
I
Spotify
did
yet?
listen.
No, not yet. We're working on
Did
it.
we get on Spotify?
No, JJ's working on it. We're just a little busy, or she's
Well,
busy.
Okay.
I just turn on the YouTube and then just swipe have the video going in my cup holder.
Yeah.
I don't want the video. I do listen to it though. On that drive home from Georgia last week or the other week, 2 weeks ago, and on the way to Georgia, I'm listening to this next one. But I listened to the what's her name? That is the Komodo dragon chick,
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Yeah,
dude, that was an amazing episode.
Thank you. I was proud of it.
That was killer. You guys were killing it.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah,
It did good. The views,
Yeah.
the
She's
views did a
awesome.
lot
Like,
better than
information.
the views did a lot better than most of our other podcasts. So that was nice.
Yeah.
How do my two rank? Did I do good?
I'll pull it up right
You're
now.
just fun to have on.
thanks.
You're just fun to have on. Hey,
Okay, we'll get back live.
what's that one croc that she's got there that false? Is it a false gharial?
Yeah, falsies.
Tomistoma. I almost said tomistoma.
Sure, you
I got
noticed.
roasted for saying that. They're cool as fuck.
It's a what?
Tomistomas. It's scientific.
Yeah, they are.
Well,
Crocodile tomistoma. Or no?
I have asked her every day that she posts that. I have asked her every day if I can help her feed that when I go down and visit.
They're she said we are
Hey,
gonna be
she's
able
gonna-
to. She's gonna feed the crocodilians.
She needs to talk reptile group chat.
What?
Yeah, she's going to feed the crocodilians. I don't get to feed the crocodilian. I'll even do my little.
Mitchell, to make you feel
Nice.
better, your last episode with us is 2 views lower than the episode with Jasmine.
Because of the shirt.
It is
Sure.
because of the shirt.
Alright, I'm gonna watch that episode twice.
But
Nah, but
but
yeah,
No. I don't know. I have there are few animals that I have a real passion for working with. And I'm really kicking myself for not trying to work a better deal on those Uromastics, because there was definitely a trio of Saharans in the bin.
Are you Jacksonville with us? With Gavin?
I'm not going to Jacksonville now.
Oh. Because Extreme has a pair of Egyptians right now.
I'll just call Steven.
Call them. I think they're Egyptians. I was not in the best state of mind.
I'll be honest with you. I have an opportunity to buy some
There were so
Egyptians
many monitors.
a really good deal, and I'm debating on whether or not I pull the trigger on it.
you're about to be coming up with a lot of animals from Florida.
But I know. I'm hoping that someone drops off some electric blue day geckos at Gavins, so that I can pick those up on the way.
Yeah, I got one. No, she's pretty big. Or he or she is pretty big.
I don't necessarily have anything set up for. I'd want to have a setup for them before I did anything.
Yeah. I have one that is considerably larger than all the rest and considerably older. So I'm like trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with them.
Yeah.
FYI, Gavin, I now have 5. I already offered her to you, and you put a fucking tree frog in that thing.
I have other tanks. I got a bunch of empty tanks.
How do you feel about? How are you liking the tree frog
They're pretty cool.
setup?
They're cool. I wish I could do more slate to cover more of the soil, because I'm scared they're gonna kill themselves. But they're doing good so far. We just fed them tonight, and they were hopping.
Why
up.
would they kill themselves?
Why are they going to kill themselves on the soil?
A lot of frogs, especially babies, will just eat handfuls of soil when they miss their crickets, and it just causes impaction and dies.
Oh,
That's why you
That's
see almost
terrifying.
every actual frog person doing raising babies up on paper towels. Like this. This is like the proper way to raise a baby Pac-Man. And then once they become adults, you can give them some substrate, but just especially for the first few months while they're lower, I've tried it many times. I've done it many times with them in bioactive. It works. It definitely does work, but it's a lot more beneficial for the animal to do the paper towels. It's less risk.
Well, then my Pac-Man's definitely in a wrong enclosure.
No, and nothing's wrong with them being in bioactive. I
Is
think
anyone in this thing have a Pac-Man except for me? Do I need a Pac-Man?
you should get a Pac-Man.
I got
It's super
Pac-Man.
simple. But
I got a bunch
they're-
of Pac-Mans.
they're
I pull
great
them out, but
animals,
I don't have any gloves.
How big do they get? Like this big?
Yeah, about that big.
You
The
know what's
thing
so
with me
funny is that's
I am-
not a reference because we all have different skin sizes.
About 4 inches in diameter.
Okay,
That's the thing that.
so aren't they frog?
What?
What was that?
Don't they have similar habits as a pixie frog? So they're just a
No.
mini frog. No,
No.
mouse.
They're a lot more lazy and
No.
not as aquatic
Oh.
as pixies.
Yeah.
See, I was
Pixie
talking-
frogs will actually go in the water and swim.
Someone was telling me that that they are more aquatic as they get older.
They are because
I mean, maybe in
they
breeding
breed
season.
they breed in the water, but pixie frogs are going to be in the water a lot, a lot. Whereas Pac-Mans, when they
Like,
get
you
older,
have
they
to have-
definitely do get in the water more, but nowhere near as much as a pixie.
Yeah, pixie frogs, you actually have to have a full-on water side
Yeah, because they're a bullfrog.
Yeah.
of the enclosure.
What
Well, what I didn't know
how
is
big
that
is-
pixie frogs and African bullfrogs are different things. I thought a pixie frog was an African bullfrog.
They are. I don't know where you heard that from, but they're the same thing.
You haven't seen the giant African bullfrogs?
Unless
Yeah, they're the same thing as a.
yeah, they're the
No,
same thing.
like the Goliath frogs.
Giant
They're called
African
Goliath frog.
Goliath frog?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different species entirely, but that's also not found in Africa. You're talking about these fuckers?
Yeah,
like
pretty sure.
these big ass frogs? These are not found in Africa. Well,
Or,
maybe they
looks like Africa to me.
No, I'm cutting that out.
No, that's
Dude, they're in Africa.
Let me read. Giant frogs. They're in. Okay, they are in Africa, but they're not pixie frogs. They're different species. They're not
African bullfrogs.
but they're not referred to as African bullfrogs.
They're
no, the
bullfrogs.
African bullfrogs are big frogs.
Yes, African bullfrogs.
They're
Are
bullfrogs.
no, they're not.
Bullfrogs.
They're called
Does that look like a bullfrog?
Dude, the common name is Goliath frog,
Does it look like a
giant
bullfrog?
slippery frog, or Goliath bullfrog. Goliath bullfrog is not the same thing as a giant African bullfrog or an African bullfrog. They're different species. This is why you can't do common names.
Is it? Hey, pixie frog. Pixie frog is a pixie frog. That
Or
looks like a bullfrog, and it's from Africa. It's an African bullfrog.
Yeah, but on Nat Geo Wild, they're
but that's
called
on
African bullfrogs.
that's just on people mixing up common names. There's a difference between Goliath bullfrogs and African.
African bullfrog.
Okay,
African
so then
bullfrog. It looks like a bullfrog.
So
It hops like a bullfrog. It's bullfrog.
Are
It
Saharan?
smells like a bullfrog.
So are all your
You're messing
Eurymatics
the
the
frog
same?
legs from that bullfrog.
Are all Eurymatics the same because they come from the same area? No, they're just different species.
No, they don't. That's not true. They don't all come from the same
Not
area.
all of them, but there's species that come from the same area and they're different species. Is all I'm trying to say.
Morocco is not Egypt.
Yes, but there's multiple species in Morocco, multiple species in Egypt, and in Yemen.
No,
and
there's
in,
not.
Yes, there are.
No, there's not.
Uh,
No, they're not.
Okay, what bad fucking
Really?
example?
There's
My
some in the
bad.
Middle-
My bad.
they're
Bad
all over the
example.
Middle
Bad
East.
example. Bad example. So our blue tree monitors the same as green tree
hey,
monitors.
All mangrove monitors are the same.
For right now. But like,
All
are
mangrove
blue
monitors
tree
are the same.
monitors and green tree monitors the same? Because
Nobody
they're
cares
the same?
Nobody cares about your complexes.
No, but all I'm trying to say is just because they're the same in the same family and or come
You're
from the same
such
area.
a nerd to understand what's going on right now.
All I'm saying is
Dude.
just because they come from the same family
All
in
I'm
the same
saying-
area doesn't mean they're
Weird.
the same animal.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know.
I know that an African pixie frog is the African bullfrog. I did not know about this Goliath frog that looks like a bullfrog and is from Africa. Because if I look at a bullfrog in America, that Goliath frog looks like a bullfrog.
Yeah,
in
they
America,
look a lot more like
but it's in
American
Africa, so
bullfrogs.
therefore it's an African bullfrog.
Which is fair,
But
but this is just a good
here's the
reason.
thing.
This is a great reason why common names are not
I
good.
still have questions about Pac-Man frogs.
Okay.
Frogs. How big of
You know what
tank
else
am I
isn't
gonna-
good? You know what else isn't good?
Full grown like a
Mitchell's
20
shirt.
or 40.
My shirt is great. The people on the pod can now know it is a fly shirt, not an umbrella shirt. We
Is it
got
bad?
comments saying that it was an umbrella shirt.
Is it bad that when you say the word
shirt,
when you say the word
it's fishing flies.
when you say the word fly, my head immediately goes fly river turtle. Is that bad?
No, you're just a nerd.
No, but I would say
You're one
a
of the
20 gallon,
The
but
person that would have a podcast.
I would say a 20 or 40 gallon would be fine.
No,
20.
but
40 on for 40 breeder.
Yeah, one of those two would be fine.
Pac-Man.
A 40 breeder would be ideal, but you can get away with a 20 gallon. I don't come at me, comments, come at me. I don't care.
mine's in a 20. Mine's in a 20 long right now, and probably twice the size of Gavin's.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's tiny.
Like yours looks like it just turned into a frog.
Yeah, it's tiny. It was
From
just
the picture?
hatched out. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like the size of
It
my
still
thumb.
has a little polywog thing.
Yeah, and you gotta find me a really cool Pac-Man frog then.
I
I'm gonna do
can
one.
get you
I
some.
want one.
I'm actually
Dude.
ordering another one on Wednesday. I'll see what other colors he has. If you want, I can just add it to my order, and then whenever you see me, I can give it to you.
Dude, I tried to find a frog list from him, and he doesn't have one.
You just have to
Yeah.
ask him.
It made me sad.
You're just gonna ask him.
I
When he
don't
has
know him
available.
like you know him.
Well, tell me what you're looking for, and I can ask because I was on the phone with him earlier today, and like, dude, he has so much shit that he doesn't post, right? Like, he is raising up 300 het toads right now, and like morph toads, and that's just the toads. Like, and he's got like crazy amounts of like, he's gonna, like, speaking of whites, he's working on this thing called, they have black eyes, but they're like, they look pied. I think he called them like urban something. So, like, he definitely has some cool shit.
I kind of want some Amazon milk frogs.
Those are cool. I'll reach out to them.
I feel they're pretty cool.
Frogs really hard to take care of in a reptile crop.
They're a lot more difficult than people like to imagine. They need lots of the biggest thing with them is humidity. You got to make sure that humidity's on point, and when you get a new frog or amphibian, I should say, hydration is fucking key, and clean water is key.
Yeah, you cannot use. You have to use dechlorinator in amphibian's cage.
Yeah, because my understanding, like, is that.
I froze.
Not my understanding.
Just leave and join back.
My thought process is that, like, there's a lot of animals that are easy to keep as pets that are harder to keep in a reptile store where you have lots of problems going. You have to find a way to display these animals. You have to find a way to.
Oh, you said in a reptile.
Keep them alive.
Yeah,
in a reptile store.
We never.
I feel like that's probably the issue.
Our biggest issue with having them at
I don't see a lot of Pac-Man reptile stuff anymore.
The biggest issue is where you're getting them from wholesale wise as a reptile store is they usually don't come in healthy. 90% of them don't come in healthy, and that's the biggest reason that issue. Is Chad loading for you too? Is he messed up?
Yeah, I'm like,
well, everyone's lagging now. What the fuck is going on? What the hell? I'm all left alone, you fuckers. I'm over here talking to myself.
I'm back.
I'm over here just talking to myself.
I'm back.
But no, the biggest issue is where you're getting them from. Like, we got Pac-Mans, but we got them from like a local breeder or something like that, or like an actual breeder. When you're buying these amphibians off wholesalers, they come in looking bad, dude, and 90% of them don't make it. So that's the issue with them in reptile stores. If you get healthy ones in a reptile store, they're usually pretty easy to keep alive and all that jazz. At least in my experience at the shop. I don't know how it is for everyone's shop, but it was fairly easy. And we had a lot of amphibians at the store a lot of the times.
Yeah, you guys definitely did more than what I see, at the shop I visit regularly.
Yeah, we would have Pac-Mans, tiger
Okay,
salamanders.
because mainly my thing decided it was going to shit. I switched to my phone because my computer decided Mitchell's on the podcast, so we're going to shit the bed.
But I definitely agree. I think
how many episodes did we record that one time? I was about to say, I feel like I've literally been on the pod so many times, and this is only my third appearance.
Or really your first video appearance.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Am I the guest with the most appearances?
Yeah, 100%. You're the only guest we brought on a second time, now third time.
Hi, Hippo.
But no, I think, I don't know, that was one thing. I think we did have, like you said, we did have a good selection of amphibians. I think that's just because us workers, a lot of people I worked with, a lot of my coworkers, Emily, and them, they were big amphibian fans. So like I had a bunch of cool amphibians on the order. Like we got crown tree frogs. We would sell Amazon milk tree frogs. We sold dart frogs of multiple different species. I mean, you've been to
Extreme is doing a lot more dart frogs now. They have like a dart frog section that looks pretty good.
Dude,
yeah, I know the person.
I'm not gonna lie. I really want to set up a badass dart frog enclosure.
But do it.
I can't. I got a guy that can do it too. It's called me.
No, I said do it.
Oh, I thought you said I got a guy that can do it. I was like, yeah, I can do it too.
No.
Well,
I just would have. I would probably have to pick up some bromeliads when I'm down there because I can't find bromeliads here to save my life, and I'm not paying Josh's frogs price on.
No, never. Go to Florida bromeliads. Their prices are very approachable.
Yeah.
You're very approachable with that shirt. But
Bad real chat. Do I have W Riz chat? Put that.
Yeah. I mean,
dart frogs
amphibians
are fun
always
if you
been
do them
cool.
properly. A lot of people don't really know how to properly do dart frogs, and you see them set up in bad care a lot. A lot of people want all the colors, so they mix all the different species, which isn't. To each your own. In that sense, like that just depends on you personally. Fuck what the community thinks. The community will crucify you if you co-have different dart frog species. My opinion, I don't like it. I think it looks more uniform having one species, but it's your fucking enclosure.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. There are definitely certain things that need to be in dart frog enclosures that not a lot of people do or really even realize, but dart frogs are awesome, and once you get them set up in that enclosure, you don't really have to do shit, because it's a fully bioactive enclosure most of the time. I don't know of anyone who does dart frogs and not fully bioactive enclosures. All you had to do at that point is just dump in fruit flies, and that is a pain. If you don't have a fruit fly supplier, do not get dart frogs.
Yeah, daily feeding fruit flies would be pretty tough.
Yeah, if you're not.
For me, having a great reptile shop, a couple great reptile shops near me, even then it would be tough for me because finding, fruit flies regularly is so hard.
Oh shit! Tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the longest time, your most consistent person that you were getting fruit flies from was fucking PetSmart.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had the best ones too.
Yeah.
Not only did they consistently have them, but they had the best ones.
Yeah.
Because they used to have a brand that came in a little tube. It was a little bit cheaper than the ones that you buy now in the big tub.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not why I liked them. I liked them because that tube, for whatever reason, made it super easy to dump them into to get them dusted and dump them into I usually dump them into a mason jar and then dust them. And the bigger the opening, the worse it is for that kind of thing. But also, for whatever reason, that tube just kept them alive. I would have those tubes last
Yeah. So just because you have a reptile store,
months.
Yeah, just because you have a reptile store that sells fruit flies doesn't necessarily mean that you will have constant access to fruit flies.
Yeah.
So what if you? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know how small a fruit fly is, but what if you were breeding dwarf white isopods?
That can work. I know people that do it, but they don't breed. I guess if you have a massive colony that you can just take handful amounts, like 25 to 50 every day from, and it not be effective, I guess that would work. But for the most part, it's really hard to sustain dwarf white colonies. It definitely feed dwarf whites. It's a great feeder for them, but it's a lot harder to do dwarf whites than fruit flies, I would say.
Also, they're pretty hard to harvest. They're more they're very labor intensive to harvest.
Yeah, because you don't want to feed any of that dirt or anything in them, because they'll ingest that dirt and that'll harm them.
So they don't know how to hunt?
I mean, they do.
No,
but have you ever watched a frog eat? They always get shit in their mouth. You don't want to overdo it.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
no,
maybe I won't get dart frogs then, because I'm not dealing with fruit flies.
If you have a colony, of those isopods, it's pretty tough to it's a little bit harder to get isopods than to just dump fruit flies into a container. So that's just more labor and
I was just talking about making them fully bioactive and having dwarf whites in there.
Yeah, I mean you can do that, but no, that's not going to feed them at all.
You'd have to have a
to be straight up, if you can't feed fruit flies daily, then you shouldn't have dart frogs. And that's no offense to you, or anything like that, but you just need fruit flies for dart frogs. That's like trying to have monitors without feeding quail or rodents. That's like trying to feed monitors on strictly crickets. When I say monitors, Asian water monitors on strictly crickets type shit.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to get my red-eyed tree frogs then.
What are What are those beetles called, Gavin? Bean beetles.
Bean beetles. Those work too. Bean beetles work great too.
Are those pretty easy to breed?
They're easy to breed, but so we had a breeder for them at the store. I'm good friends with them. Shout out Brown Coat Labs and put their stuff right there. Go buy your isopods from them. Best isopod breeders in the country. Can't change their minds. But they bred. You don't have to be secretive about it.
Hard.
But you don't have to. They were
just chilled so hard.
They were breeding bean beetles and supplying our store with bean beetles, and they were great feeders. But it was a pain in the ass to actually get the beetles to feed them because they hide in all the fucking beans. Like, you open that container and they all hide in the beans, and you're basically just fucking pouring beans into the enclosure. So if there's a different way, I assume that if there's a different way you can, I don't know if there's a different way you can breed them or harvest them, but the beans made it really difficult to actually breed or to actually feed the bean beetles. But they are great feeders. The bean beetles are better than fruit flies, in my opinion, for dart frogs.
So that's one of the reasons why, like, so many, like, from my experience on the aquatic side, there's so many great feeders out there that haven't taken off because the form of harvest with them is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the secrets to, like, being a really great, live food feeder or breeder, is learning these little secrets of, like, oh, this is how I harvest this so I can breed this easy.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
And that's like, that's why I love talking to those old experts. You're like,
I mean,
wow, I would have never thought about that.
Another good example is fucking grasshoppers, man. I know grasshoppers are fairly popular, so it might not be the best example, but grasshoppers are way, 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 way better feeder than crickets. But it is a lot easier to, per se, grab crickets and throw them in a bag than a grasshopper. Like, you open a grasshopper cage, speaking from experience, them motherfuckers start flying around the room, dude. They start going. Like, I know people, like, I don't know if Kai does this, but I know breeders that breed grasshoppers that they have to make, like, one of their little secret tricks is they have, like, a little one-way hole that they can stick their arms in, grab the hoppers, and then pull the hoppers out and put them in the bag, per se. And they don't have to open the enclosure fully. And that is something that it's a super easy thing to do, but that makes them slightly more difficult to harvest than crickets. So, but I don't think that's going to affect it. I think grasshoppers are going to go on a huge rise. So that was a bad example, but kind of a good example in reptile terms. Like, what, copepods? Is that not maybe? I feel like copepods are easy to breed, but
no, copepods are pretty.
I know they're terrible to harvest.
I know
they're not the right. Like, one of the things I always think about is there's a shrimp, I believe, from Arizona that's fairly, from the deserts of Arizona, that's fairly good feeder, or it's some sort of little invertebrate. Maybe it's horseshoe crab, a mini horseshoe crab, I think. It's a little tiny feeder that is phenomenal. They're just really hard to harvest, and they're very hard. Like, they're not hard to breed, but it's hard to harvest them to feed them to your fish.
Yeah.
I think I see people, like, going to things like springtails for smaller insect food because it's just so much easier to harvest them, and that's the interesting thing about, like, some of these live foods that we're starting to discover, especially these little critters that are going to be good live foods, is how do we develop these techniques for, hard,
I think that
breeding
just
them.
comes with time.
And that's where I think social media is going to help a lot, is people testing things out. Like, hey, I tried this and it didn't work. I got 50 grasshoppers in my room right now.
Yeah, definitely. So I agree. I think it's definitely a thing with time, and tying back to the social media good for the hobby. Man, the hobby is, for the most part, a lot more open than it was back in the, from what I've heard, than, like, the days when Chad started out. Like, Chad, you mentioned it last episode. You got your mastic eggs, and no one knew what to do. But I know for, like, what year was that, roughly?
2004.
2004. Maybe not with Euromastics, but like I know, we'll just say Euromastics for example. I could be wrong, but I know for a fact there were people breeding "quote unquote" Euromastics in that time period, but no one wanted to share that information. Whereas now with social media, everyone seems to be. There are people that are secretive for sure, but it's a lot more open and a lot more like people are a lot more willing to share information, which is a good thing.
Well, it was a hard thing too because I don't even think. I guess Facebook might have been, or MySpace might have been around.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook wasn't, but MySpace might have.
Yeah, MySpace might have been around, and but there were no.
Gavin was 2 years old then.
Groups or anything like that, and it's like, so to find out any information, somebody just thumbs down me.
Damn, Gavin just thumbs down you.
What?
Somebody just thumbs down me.
Oh,
you're doing this. No way! It caught with my hand.
Oh, is that what it's doing?
Yeah, you were doing this.
Oh, that's funny.
I've seen that happen a couple episodes before.
I've never. Oh, hey, thumbs up! Hey. Look at Bozo down there trying to get thumbs up. You can't get it to happen. Y'all don't even know about the Bozo Super Sunday show.
All right, so it looks like Euromastics were first bred in right around that time period. The early 90s, early 2000s was when they were first bred. So they were at least slowly being worked on then. And it probably took, like, I would say, till social media, really, until people were really talking about how to breed a lot of these animals.
Yeah. To think I lost that entire clutch because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, yet if you, like, if social media was around, you
probably
could have reached out to somebody.
Been able to do it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, social media.
Just say it, guys. I'm old.
old.
Sorry.
But
hey, make you wiser than us.
I don't know. I think Chad, if you don't want to deal with fruit flies, but you really want to do dart frogs,
bean beetles.
Bean beetles, if you can figure out a way to harvest them, but springtails honestly could be a good option because you can do springtails on clay substrate and clay substrate.
They're so tiny, bro.
Yeah, but so like you want they might be. It depends on the dart frog species. It depends on the species. If you have like a dwarf species, like the Saint Isabels that we like, Mitchell, or even like some Adelopus species that are super small, I think springtails could be a good option if you're doing them in clay substrate. But yeah.
I wonder if I can import in those ants that they eat in the wild.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Do you want them to be poisonous?
Oh, I mean, they're only going to be poisonous if I eat them or lick them.
You know, there's
or
actually
put them on the tip of an arrow.
Do you know there's actually studies that have shown
poison dart frog arrow?
But there's actually studies that have shown that have discovered and shown that the ants aren't the only reason they're poisonous, and that the native plants and stuff that they live with are actually play effect into the poison that they have.
So we got to find the native plant. We basically just had to go get a chunk of rainforest and bring it here.
You have to replicate the wild.
It
comes full circle, baby.
The jungle, like dirt too, and everything. Okay.
I almost wonder if I could take a pump, so do a big drainage layer at the bottom of it, and if I set a pump on a timer, if that pump was strong enough that I could put a mister, like a wand at the top, a misting wand, so I could get it to mist for so many minutes, like for 15 minutes every day.
Well, yeah,
you'd have to have a giant drainage layer.
Yeah, and it would have to be full. Well, there'd have to be water in the drainage layer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just have. I would also have a lot of ventilation. I don't know. Actually, do frogs get like?
You need clean water too, and a lot of that drainage layer has gone through dirt and is all murky and nasty. I don't think that would be a good idea for dart frogs, at least.
It would be cool to find a way to do a rain chamber, though. Essentially.
Not necessarily,
people
because if you do it,
The people
if you
do rain chambers. Like I don't know what
No,
you
Yeah,
want.
but not in there. They don't usually do them in the same system.
Light,
A lot of people.
light bulb.
Hmm.
If you put soil, right, and then you put one of those charcoal pads, right, and then a thing of polyfill underneath the charcoal pad,
Mm-hmm.
and then your drainage layer. You have a nice thick drainage layer. You just put your pump in the back.
Yeah,
It'll filter down through the charcoal and through the polyfill, and you'll have clear water again.
yeah, but I don't know how many bioactives you've built or seen. I've built, I'd probably say, and seen and worked with, like in the stores and everything, probably like at least 100 bioactives. And out of those 100, I have only seen one with more than half an inch of water in it. And that's with the bioactives being misted 2 to 3 times a day, heavy misted for these.
Are you talking about mine?
No, no. The main one I'm talking about is the one at that big 75 gallon we had at the one store with the bumblebee dart frogs. That thing had like That thing had like 5 to 6 gallons of water underneath it, and that just takes a long time.
That was leakage.
Yeah, exactly. It just a lot of it. If you're doing a proper bioactive, you shouldn't end up with much water in the drainage layer.
I'm not sure.
I know I might be able to, so it gets misted down every day.
You might be able to make a recurring rain chamber style. I don't know how you would do it, but you might be able to.
Honestly, I don't see the point. You have misting systems and you have clean water. If you want something that rechambers water, why not just make a waterfall like everyone else does? Or like a water that drips down. I don't see the point in making it mist the animals off. Personally, I don't see the point in that.
Because it looks cool.
Yeah, because you're not as cool as us guys.
Well, if it's just for looks, what is the difference between just having an automatic misting system hooked up and having a waterfall in there?
Because then you don't have to have another thing hanging on the back of your tank.
Well, then just have a waterfall in there. If you just have a waterfall in there, you don't have to have anything hanging in your tank. You have the water reservoir that the water is recycling, which is what you want. It's
a water reservoir.
Yeah, you have that in there for the waterfall, but that's not
like a little pond in there.
So why couldn't I have a little water reservoir under the drainage layer that?
It's just going to get soaked up and held in that substrate layer for a long time.
That's the thing. If you fill it up with water, if it's just the drainage layer and you fill it up with water,
you guys are just haters.
Because like people do that. People do what you're talking about.
Great idea. You guys just shot me down.
People do that.
Chad, it's a great idea. The only thing is, I know in my terrarium has that much substrate, probably a solid 4 inches of substrate and probably 4 inches of drainage layer. And to fill that drainage layer, it takes about 2 gallons of water for an 18 by 18 by 4 inch thing. And I think you would need more than that to have rain level pressures for 15 minutes.
Yeah, you would. You would need a lot more.
But
if you just want
potatoes,
the soil just holds so much water. It's so good at holding water. Even a really good draining, like my soil drains pretty well, but it is good at holding water. Yeah. Unless it's like straight sand.
If you just want the looks of having that repurposed water and do a waterfall, you can do a little water reservoir, quote unquote, under the drainage layer. It just can't be the same as the drainage layer, if that makes sense. Like people do that all the time. Serpent Designs does that in a lot of his builds.
You're just trusting my hopes and dreams, Gavin. I don't like it.
Well, I'm saying it can work.
Yeah.
I'm definitely saying it can work, but it just if you want a true rain chamber, you're just gonna either have to build one into the tank and have it like the misters and stuff attached to the tank, or make a separate one that's a different enclosure.
Chad, when we come up and visit, and Gavin is playing with whatever crazy crocodilians you have all day, you and I can sit down and do a build without being encumbered by him.
chastised by Gavin?
Yes, we will just we will go down to the local Ace Hardware and get all our supplies and build a dope enclosure together.
Yep.
Man,
And
fuck
I even
y'all.
have all the cork bark I need.
Fuck you.
There we go.
I've built some badass enclosures. I don't want to hear it.
I know, dude. We need to have like a build off, honestly.
Wait, what enclosure do you have? You have grow tents.
What are you talking about, dude? You're acting like I've had grow tents in my home. I have built fucking insane enclosures for tree monitors, dude.
He's built a lot. He has.
I have built a lot of enclosures. I have built a lot. I know.
It was a joke.
Even these are bioactive.
Don't get butthurt about your grow tents.
Yeah, but Gavin, you don't build backgrounds or anything like that.
I do build backgrounds, not in the grow tents, but in every other tank. I have a fucking YouTube tutorial how to build a background, fucker. What are you talking about? I have a YouTube video on it. What is this?
I think I make cooler backgrounds than you do.
Whatever you think.
And I think Chad and I make cooler backgrounds than you do.
Okay.
Hey, I made a pretty cool background.
Tell that to the tree monitor cages I built, and we'll talk about it.
Well,
okay, talk about my paludarium then.
to be fair, my background I built was just Universal Rock background.
See?
Oh. Well, Chad, come on, man. I'm trying to put us above him, okay?
Hey, how many times have you guys used Universal Rock?
Hi.
Never, because I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it.
I don't think.
It's overpriced.
I mean, I think it looks good. I think it looks good. I just like.
It's not worth the money, in my opinion.
If you have a giant thing to enclose, I think is worth it. Like, you know, like these YouTubers have that's like 10 by 10. Like, yeah, like it looks good, but like in the smaller enclosures, you can make something look better yourself.
100%, I agree.
But it is cool that you got to use it. I haven't got to use it yet, and I kind of want it to try. I might just down.
I got some up here we can use.
Alright, let's do it. When's deer season for you guys open up?
Right now.
Is it opening weekend this weekend too?
I think so. All I know is all the deer are on the move, so all the deer are getting hit right now. So,
Well,
dove season opened last weekend.
is there anything else we want to talk about since this episode ended up just being a fucking argument? Any other controversial topics you want to... Actually, yes, I want to bring something up.
October 15th, so we got a while. And
Okay.
I don't even want to bring it up right now. We'll save that for another episode. That's a whole episode worth.
bring it up, yeah.
No, it's legitimately not something we can cover in like 20 minutes. It would be like a 2-hour conversation.
Come on, let's talk now. Let's talk now. You know the Habib.
No, well, you and Mitch can talk about it. I'll talk about it some other time because old man's got to get to bed because he got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
All
right, but yeah. Anything else anyone wanted to add?
Are we closing out the podcast?
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Or do we want to stick around? I mean, do you want to stick around or no?
Me?
Okay, yeah, we'll close it out. You guys do your outro.
Well, thank you for coming on, Mitchell. It was fun talking to you. Next time, we'll probably... I swear to God, this will be better work.
If we experience any more technical difficulties with Mitchell,
we might have to never bring him on again.
I have been a savior, I thought. I've been a fill-in episode every time.
Well, I mean, if you want to be that guy.
Yeah, I'm okay being that guy. I like hanging out with you guys, talking with you guys.
But, definitely enjoy it too.
Yeah, anytime you guys want me on, let me know. I'll be back. I enjoy talking to you guys as usual.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, see you in a couple weeks. And I want to say congratulations to you guys. Podcast's been going great. Love the last few episodes. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, man.
We'll talk to you later. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow or later tonight.
Yeah.
Send me a list of what kind of Pac-Man frogs you want.
Yep.
But see you, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
See ya, dude.
See ya. That was a spicy episode. That was fun. But yeah, guys.
You got real spicy in that episode.
Thank you guys for watching this episode. It was entertaining for us. We all love each other. There was no actual beef here. These two are my two best friends.
We had fun.
Yeah, Chad and Mitchell are two of my closest friends in this entire earth. So it's no hard feelings between us. Hope you all enjoyed this episode and listening to us argue. Like the video, subscribe, share. We'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
See ya.